Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of my alpha family, the ones who bleed thunder and cry in silence, the ones who grind in the shadows and do not care if the world sees them or not, because they already know who they are. This one's for you. This one's for the fire that burns in your gut, the darkness that shaped you, the rejection that sculpted your resolve, the betrayal that built your rage. You've walked through valleys no one dared to enter. You've faced nights so quiet you could hear your soul screaming. And today you walk in wearing the weight of your demons as armor. And to you I say this, BRO, you just made 100 people feel stupid at once, not because you wanted to, not because you tried, but because when truth stands next to illusion, reality becomes a weapon. When greatness walks among mediocrity, it blinds the herd and they can't stand the light. So they call you arrogant, they call you dangerous. They try to drown you in labels, but the truth is they feel threatened because you remind them of everything they gave up on you. Remind them of the promises they never kept to themselves, the dreams they buried beneath excuses, the ambitions they traded for comfort, and the discipline they were too lazy to maintain. You walked into the room and without speaking tore down the false altars they built around themselves. You shattered the mask of pretended wisdom. With one word, you didn't argue. You didn't fight. You just existed. And in that existence, you exposed the hollow noise of their echo chambers. You made them feel naked without laying a hand on them. Because when real power shows up, it doesn't need validation. It doesn't need a crowd. It walks alone and still shakes the ground. And now they hate you for it. They despise your clarity because they know you didn't come from privilege. You came from chaos. You weren't handed anything. You took the pain and turned it into purpose. You weren't born elite. You became unbreakable through repetition, through suffering, through nights of doubt when your own shadow mocked you. And yet you kept showing up again and again while they quit at the first sign of resistance. Understand this alpha family. When people say you made them feel stupid, they're not accusing you. They're confessing what you really did was make them remember that greatness isn't magic, it's consistency. The purpose isn't found, it's forged. That power isn't loud, it's disciplined, and you just became a mirror to their mediocrity. And instead of rising, they chose to recoil. Instead of evolving, they chose envy. And that's not your burden to carry. Their shame is not your anchor, and their weakness is not your problem. Let them hate. Let them plot. Let them whisper. You've already done what they fear the most. You've awakened. And once a soul has awakened to its own potential, no cage, no lie, no system can hold it. You don't owe them softness when all they gave you was silence. You don't need to apologize for building when all they did was watch you crumble. You don't have to explain your pace, your purpose, your hunger. You owe them nothing but your progress. So keep moving, Alpha. Keep ascending, and let every glare be a confirmation that you're on the right path. Because when 100 people feel stupid in your presence, it means you're operating at a level they haven't even dreamed of. And it's not your job to lower yourself to their comfort. It's their responsibility to rise or be left behind. Do you remember the nights when no one believed in you, not even yourself? Do you remember the laughter when you told them your vision? Do you remember the silence when you failed? Do you remember the way they distanced themselves when your storm came crashing? Well, now the tables have turned and the silence you carry has become deafening. Your actions are louder than their lies, your scars more valuable than their certificates, and your solitude more powerful than their applause. This is what happens when you bet on yourself. This is what happens when you stop asking for permission and start claiming territory. The look in their eyes isn't confusion, it's fear, because you became what they said you'd never be, and worse, you did it without them. They see the gap now, and they know it's permanent. They see the discipline, the relentlessness, the intensity, and it terrifies them, because deep down, they know if you could do it, so could they. But they won't, because they chose comfort, and you chose conquest. They chose routine, and you chose the warpath. They chose to blend in, and you chose to dominate. They want your results, but not your rituals. They want your strength, but not your struggle. They want the crown, but not the crucifixion. And you are the living reminder that the grind always pays back, that the universe doesn't reward the loudest. It rewards the most loyal to their vision, the most stubborn to their standard, the most faithful to the dark path. And now they're bitter because you came from the same hell and made heaven from it. So no, don't dim your fire to make them feel warm. Let them burn. Let their illusions burn. Let their comfort burn, because the world needs more awakeners and fewer pleasers. It needs more wolves and fewer sheep. It needs more alphas, not apologies. And you, bro, you just made 100 people feel stupid at once, because for the first time in their lives, they saw what accountability looks like. They saw what no excuses sounds like. They saw what conviction feels like, and it paralyzed them. They've never seen someone who doesn't care about their approval. They've never seen someone so committed. It's terrifying. So keep being the storm. Keep being the standard. Keep being the one they can't forget. Because every room you enter becomes a test. Every word you speak is a call to rise or retreat. And most will retreat, because comfort is addictive and growth is painful. You have to understand, they aren't angry at you. They're angry at what you represent. They're angry that your presence forced them to confront their own choices. They're angry that while they were laughing, you were learning while they were sleeping. You were sacrificing while they were gossiping. You were grinding, and now they feel stupid. Because deep down they know they never even tried, and nothing makes a person more bitter than seeing someone win without shortcuts, someone rise without favors, someone evolve without compromise. And here's the truth, they will keep watching and whispering and waiting for your fall, but they'll be waiting forever, because you didn't build this for attention. You built this for redemption. You didn't come this far to prove them wrong. You came this far to prove yourself right. You didn't survive just to exist. You rose from the ashes to dominate. And this is just the beginning, because now the world knows your name. Now the storm has a face. Now the shadows have a general, and they are afraid. Not because you're perfect, but because you're relentless. Let them call it arrogance. When you speak truth, let them call it pride. When you set standards, let them call it ego. When you say no, because they can't understand someone who no longer negotiates with mediocrity, someone who doesn't tolerate the language of excuses, someone who doesn't break when challenged, but breaks records and barriers and beliefs. This is what happens when a soul stops asking and starts taking, when a mind stops doubting and starts deciding, when a heart stops breaking and starts burning. And the ones who made you feel small will one day call you unstoppable. So walk tall, Alpha, even when you walk alone, because alone is where you found yourself. Alone is where you earned your fire. Alone is where you forged your name. And now even in silence you shake the room. Even in stillness you break their illusions, because presence is earned, not bought. Respect is built, not begged. And greatness is lonely, but legendary. B-Row, you just made 100 people feel stupid at once, and that is not your shame. It is your crown, because kings don't explain themselves to peasants. Warriors don't apologize for winning. And legends don't ask permission to lead. They just do. And you just did. So now that they've seen what's possible, now that their illusions are shattered, now that their hierarchy built on noise and nepotism has collapsed in the face of your discipline, they're scrambling, trying to label what they can't control. They call it luck. They call it timing. They say you changed, but they know you didn't change. You just stopped pretending to be less, so they could feel like more. You stopped shrinking to fit in rooms not built for you. And now they call you cold because you stopped seeking warmth from people who only gave you frostbite. Now they say you're distant because you finally understand that proximity to mediocrity is poison, and you'd rather be alone with your vision than surrounded by people who sold theirs. They feel stupid because you turned every no into fuel, every loss into a lesson, every insult into ignition. And now you walk like every scar is a stripe of rank, and every failure was a phase in the training montage they never had the stomach for. They watched you bleed, and now they hate you for not dying. They watched you stumble, and now they envy the way you rose. They watched you break, and now they fear the way you bend, because resilience is foreign to the fragile, and silence is unbearable to the loud. You didn't do this to mock them. You did this to survive. You didn't speak to shame them. You spoke because silence was a prison, and your words are the escape rope for everyone, too afraid to speak their truth. And they hate that too, because when you rise, you expose the cage they built around themselves and pretend is freedom, and the world doesn't forgive awakeners. It crucifies them, but you already died once and came back stronger. So let them swing. Let them throw their stones. Your spine is made of everything they were too afraid to face. You're not here to make friends. You're here to make impact. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be legendary. You're not here to conform. You're here to conquer. And if that makes them feel small, then let it. Because the truth is, no one who's building greatness ever has time to make others feel stupid. People only feel that way when they compare your commitment to their complacency, your hunger to their hesitation, your discipline to their distraction, and the guilt eats them alive. They'll try to twist your story. Now they'll say you got lucky. They'll say you had help. They'll say you're not who you used to be. And you know what? They're right. You're not who you used to be. Because the old, you tolerated their lies. The old, you begged for their support. The old, you dimmed your light so they could shine. And now the new you walks in with full wattage, and they can't stand the brightness. Because they haven't evolved, they haven't risen, they haven't healed. They've just hidden. And you, bro, you made 100 people feel stupid because you stopped hiding and started thriving. There was a time you would have apologized for this. A time you would have explained a time you would have softened the blow. Not anymore, because greatness doesn't apologize for intimidating. The lazy purpose doesn't explain itself to the lost. And warriors don't ask peasants for permission to ride into battle. The truth is they had the same time, the same hours, the same chances, but they chose comfort, and now they want to call you unfair. And that's the cruel irony of success. It reveals the choices people made in silence and blames the results on everyone but themselves. So you keep moving, not for them, but for the one who believed in you. When no one else did, you do it for the version of you that didn't quit. For the voice inside that whispered, "Go again," when the world screamed. Stop for the pain that became your blueprint and the darkness that taught you how to see. And yes, they feel stupid, but that's not your fault. That's the cost of refusing to evolve. And evolution doesn't wait. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't care who's offended. It only honors those who adapt, those who overcome, those who burn the bridges behind them, because there is no going back. You carry weight they couldn't lift. You fight wars they've never trained for. You have discipline they've never understood, and the distance between you and them is measured not in talent, but in tenacity, not in luck, but in labor, not in dreams, but in devotion. And now they call you lucky, but they never saw the nights you wept, the mornings you wanted to quit, the years you stayed silent while they mocked you, and that silence became your sanctuary, your forge, your proving ground. And now you walk in silence still, not because you have nothing to say, but because your actions do all the speaking. Let them keep watching. Let them keep whispering. Let them keep hoping you fail, because they need you more than you need them. They need your fall to justify their laziness. They need your collapse to comfort their mediocrity. But that fall will never come, because you weren't built on trends. You were built on truth. You weren't built by praise, you were built by pressure. And you weren't built to impact and BRO. You just made 100 people feel stupid at once because you became everything they said was impossible. You did it without them, and now they have to live with the truth that you were right all along. So keep going, Alpha. Keep moving like a ghost through their doubt. Keep walking like fire through their fears. Keep building like your bloodline depends on it, because it does. This isn't just about you. This is about every soul watching you in silence, wondering if they're crazy for believing in something greater. This is for the underdogs, the exiles, the misfits, the ones who refuse to die with their song still inside. This is for the future you, who will one day look back and know you gave everything you had and left nothing on the table. You're not here for revenge, you're here for legacy. And revenge fades, but legacy echoes forever. And those 100 people who felt stupid today will either rise or rot. And that's not your story, that's theirs. Because you didn't come here to prove them wrong. You came here to prove yourself invincible, and you did it. Borrow, you did it without their help, without their applause, without their support. And now that they're awake, they will never sleep the same again, because once you see someone win from rock bottom, you can never unsee it, and you can never again lie to yourself about what's possible. This is your era, Alpha. Your blood speaks louder than their opinions. Your pain has more value than their pride, and your journey is a masterpiece of war scars and silent victories, and you wear them like armor because you earned every single one. And now the battlefield is yours, and the throne is no longer vacant, and the world will watch and hate and admire and fall silent, because real greatness isn't loud, it's inevitable. And now here we are, standing on the edge of something irreversible, because once a mind has tasted freedom, once a heart has beat to the rhythm of purpose, once a soul has been tested in the furnace of solitude and emerged intact, there is no going back. And now you walk differently, not because you're pretending, but because you've been reborn, and that version of you that used to beg for understanding, that used to seek validation, that used to hold back out of fear, is gone, buried beneath every rep, every rejection, every cold morning, every long night, and every moment. You chose growth over guilt every time you chose mission over mood, every time you showed up when quitting would have felt so much better. And now when you enter a room, they feel it before they see it. Now when you speak, the air tightens, because your words don't come from inspiration, they come from initiation. And the reason they feel stupid isn't because you made them small, it's because you reminded them of how small they made themselves, and no one wants to remember the moment they chose safety over evolution. No one wants to admit they once had the same fire and let it die. And so they lash out, they mock, they deflect, they cling to old stories that no longer apply to you and try to box you in a frame that no longer fits. But you are not that person anymore, and you will never be again. Because now, now you've seen. Now you've tasted the consequence of going all in and the reward of refusing to fold. And now you're addicted, not to the result, but to the becoming addicted to the discipline, addicted to the truth, addicted to the silence where most are screaming for attention. So let them choke on their shame. Let them retreat into the crowd. Let them call you cruel for refusing to slow down for them. You gave them the blueprint. They chose the blindfold. You gave them the example. They chose the excuse. You gave them the standard. They chose the story. And that story is theirs to suffer, not yours to carry, because BRO, you just made 100 people feel stupid at once, and that's not a headline. That's a prophecy fulfilled, because it was always written that the one who rose from nothing would become the one who breaks everything, that the one who was forgotten would become unforgettable, that the one who was ignored would become the voice that drowns out their noise. You are not here to blend, you are here to burn, and the fire you bring is not for warmth, it's for war, it's for cleansing the weakness from the bloodline. It's for reminding the world that one unbreakable human is more dangerous than 1,000 who compromise. And now that you're here, now that the door's open, now that the throne is taken, the only thing left to do is build further, go deeper, rise higher, because this is not your final form. This is not your ceiling. This is only the beginning of the reign. You've earned, and they hate that more than anything. They hate that you're not stopping. They hate that you don't need them. They hate that they cannot touch you, because now your spirit moves in a different frequency. Your thoughts are weapons, and your silence is lethal. And don't think for a second they won't try again. They will try to befriend you. Now. They will try to get close. They will try to find a weakness in your armor, but they will find only truth, forged in pressure, steel tempered in loneliness, and a mind too disciplined to fall for praise that comes after the work is done. They didn't believe when it mattered. They didn't support when it cost something. And now they want a seat at the table. They never helped build. Let them starve. Let them sit with the regret. Let them dine on the bitterness of watching someone else become what they were too afraid to chase. You gave them the chance to rise with you. They declined. You gave them the fire. They put it out with fear. You gave them the vision. They closed their eyes. You didn't take anything from them. They abandoned it on their own. And now they have to watch you carry it all the way to the top. And that is why they feel stupid. That is why they shake when you speak. Because somewhere deep inside, they know the same beast lives in them, and they chose to cage it while you let it hunt. You are the reminder that legends aren't chosen. They're built. You are the evidence that pain can be profitable, that suffering can be sacred, that loneliness can be the highest form of loyalty to self, and every step you take, every goal you crush, every room you dominate without trying is a sermon to the ones still sleeping, and it either wakes them up or kills them inside, because truth will do that. Truth will not entertain lies. Truth will not coddle fear. Truth will not allow mediocrity to pretend it's enough. And now, your life is truth, and it terrifies them. It unmasks their games. It exposes their weakness. It levels their illusion. And bro, you just made 100 people feel stupid at once, because truth hits harder when it's silent, and success hurts more when it's deserved, and you earned it every second of it. Every scar on your soul, every sacrifice you made while they coasted every hour. You poured into your craft while they scrolled through distractions. Every tear you buried in training while they laughed behind your back and said, "You are wasting your time." Well, look, who's wasting their breath now? Look, who's trying to explain why they didn't try? Look, who's stuck, explaining failure while you're living freedom. This is what happens when discipline meets destiny. This is what happens when obsession becomes your oxygen. This is what happens when doubt is replaced by domination, and now you are untouchable. Not because you're better, but because you refuse to be broken. And the world never forgets the ones who refuse to bow. So go further, Alpha. Go darker. Go harder. Go longer. Because this is your blood. This is your name. This is your territory. Now you don't have to prove it. You just have to walk in it. Because when you walk now, mountains move. When you speak, now tides shift. And when you look in the mirror now, you see the one they said could never exist. And you smile. Not because you're proud, but because you know this is only phase one. The empire hasn't even begun to stretch its full wings yet. And still, you BRO made 100 people feel stupid at once. So the next time they say, you're too intense, too focused, too distant, too serious, too cold. Remember they said that when you were just getting started, and now those same people can't look you in the eye because you are everything they're not, and everything they still want to be, and nothing will haunt them more than that. Because regret is the final price of refusing to rise, and the sound of you winning will be the soundtrack to their silence forever. Now walk on. Walk through their judgment. Walk through their envy. Walk through their whispers. Walk through their disbelief, because you are not one of them anymore, and you never will be again. And the throne doesn't ask for permission. The storm doesn't knock before it arrives, and Alpha Kings don't apologize for the impact they bring. They only raise the standard and leave the rest gasping for air. You bro. You just made 100 people feel stupid at once, and that wasn't your goal. That was just the side effect of becoming undeniable. And the truth is, you're just getting started.